On this episode of MythBusters, Adam and Jamie are gunning for two dual dilemmas.
Right in the belly.
First, is it true that you should never bring a knife to a gunfight?
Dude, that is just so terrifying.
Then, in a samurai showdown, does the fighter who moves first actually lose?
No.
I've got a headache.
Meanwhile, Carrie, Tori, and Grant go ballistic
Raining death from above.
as they fire up an epic retro rocket.
Instead of bullets, it's shooting arrows.
Was the ancient Chinese fire dragon
This is 10 live rocket arrows inside Fire Dragon.
really the world's first two-stage mythical missile?
In 3, 2, 1, fire.
Who are the MythBusters? Adam Savage
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
and Jamie Heineman.
We're gonna have an adventure.
Between them, more than 30 years of special effects experience. Together with Tori Belleci,
Come along for the journey.
Grant Imahara,
Nothing to touch me!
and Carrie Byron.
Let's do it.
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
What's with all the weaponry?
Well, we've got some dueling myths on the roster today.
Dueling.
Dueling, you know, two guys facing off against each other. You were in a duel once, weren't you?
I don't want to talk about it.
Fair enough. The first one we've got to test is an Old West saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Meaning that one of those always beats one of these.
Yeah. The second one is a samurai saying that in a battle between two swordsmen, the first one to move will lose.
So it's a dueling double bill. And first up, the guys are gunning for a classic cliche.
So the cowboy's advice is to never bring a knife to a gunfight.
Exactly. And honestly, that seems patently obvious. I mean, if I'm holding this gun and you're holding that knife and we're like 20 feet apart, I am going to shoot you before you can get to me and stab me.
Yeah, but what if I was to throw the knife?
Like Magnificent Seven.
That's the one, and it might even the odds a little bit.
Boy, it might.
I tell you what, why don't you be the shooter and I'll go get some expert knife throwing advice.
And then we'll meet at the corral.
You're on.
See you there.
If I'm gonna go up against a gun with a throwing knife,
Draw!
I'm gonna need a little practice. And so with that in mind, we've brought in knife throwing expert John Labash, who's gonna tell me everything I need to know, including how to do the famous throw from Magnificent Seven. So John, let's have a look at the overhand throw. What's the trick?
Your basic grip is you take your pinky, put it on the radius of the handle, hold the handle like you would a hammer.
Okay, got it. And then what?
Your stance is sideways to the target. Bring the knife back over your head, go forward. When you get to here, let the knife slide out of your hand.
John makes it sound so easy. And with 10 years of knife throwing experience, it is. But for a don't try this at home novice,
Thumb on the side, pinky on the radius.
there's no ka-ching to the spin. But Jamie tries, and tries again until,
Look at that.
despite hitting the bullseye,
Not bad.
it's not all good news. Because this overhand throw is too slow to beat a gunslinger. The Magnificent Seven here went under the knife. And this lower blow is a much tougher throw. So let's cut to our shooter.
It's knife versus gun, and I'm the one holding the gun against Jamie's throwing knife. Now, we couldn't find an Old West gun that shoots paintballs, so we went with a more modern version, this one here. But I'm still going to wear an Old West style holster for it. They don't make those, so I'm gonna make one.
Firing real bullets at Jamie is too dangerous, even for the MythBusters.
Soaking the leather makes it nice and pliable.
So a paintball pistol, complete with freshly fabricated holster,
Yeah.
will be their weapon of choice.
I'm pretty pleased with that. This is not a real gun. I wouldn't point a real gun at my cameraman. You got that?
And while Adam practices his quick draw,
Right in the belly.
Jamie's finally perfected his pitch.
There we go.
I made this throw. I actually hit the bullseye from 20 feet. So it's clear that with some practice, you can get pretty good at this. But having a successful knife throw is all about precisely knowing what kind of power you have to put in at a specific distance to hit the target. Now, that puts it into an entirely different league than using a pistol, where all you have to do is point the darn thing and pull the trigger.
Yep, there's no doubt about it. Firing a gun is easier. But does that mean you should never bring a knife to a gunfight? Next, it's out of the frying pan into the fire dragon.
All right, this is going to be fun because we have an ancient weapon myth that I think is awesome.
All right, what is it?
It's called the fire dragon. Now, this is from 14th century China and rumored to be the very first two-stage rocket.
All right, I know this one. It's supposedly a fairly long tube with a dragon head on the end. And according to legend, it had rockets on the outside that propelled it up into the air. Halfway through the flight, the second weapon stage activates, and rocket arrows come shooting out of the mouth.
All right, so then the kicker is nobody knows for sure if this thing worked?
Exactly. The evidence is really, really poor, so it's up to us to test it.
Roaring to life in 14th century China, the fire dragon was supposedly the world's first two-stage rocket missile. Stage 1 used 4 rockets to get airborne. Stage 2 would then fire off 10 rocket arrows directly towards its target. But is this ancient anecdote accurate, or is this myth going down?
All right, so since this rocket is a two-stage rocket, I say we test it in 2 stages.
Go on.
All right, first stage, we gotta see if this rocket design is aerodynamic enough to actually fly straight.
Look, I gotta say right off the bat, I highly doubt that this thing's gonna fly straight. If you look at the drawing, it doesn't look aerodynamic at all.
Okay, well then why don't we make a miniature version, take it to NASA and see if it is aerodynamic. And then we'll move on to see if we get rocket-powered arrows to fly out of its mouth mid-flight.
I love it.
I've been doing a little bit of research on the fire dragon weapon, and all the historical drawings look pretty consistent. There's 4 booster rockets on the outside and an open-mouthed dragon head that spits out the arrows inside. And then there's sort of a tail that makes the fins. So I'm going to make the fire dragon rocket in small scale, take it to the NASA wind tunnel, and see if it even has a chance of flying straight. And if it doesn't, then we'll make a couple modifications until it does.
Because historical pictures can be more propaganda than precision,
Not a dragon yet.
Carrie's starting by sculpting the ancient drawings in scale.
Retreat, they have a fire dragon!
She'll then use this model to see if the mythical missile could ever get off the ground in the first place.
One arrow-breathing fire dragon.
And in case not, she's also built a backup.
I made an arrow-breathing fire dragon based on the historical drawings, but because it's not the most aerodynamic shape, I also modified a head and made it a little more simple so that when we take this to NASA, if this isn't gonna fly straight, we have some alternatives.
With the 2 creations carved out, let the rocket science commence.
Ready to go back into the wind tunnel?
NASA and dragon seems like an odd mix, doesn't it?
Oh, you'll see. So we have here Carrie's traditional fire dragon, exactly as depicted in all the diagrams. We've got it set up here in the wind tunnel. Spin up the wind tunnel to 25 miles per hour, and if it starts to turn and does not self-correct back to straight, then we'll know we're not stable.
This is test 1, lateral stability of the arrow-breathing fire dragon. Go ahead, turn on the wind.
Under the watchful eye of senior scientist Steve Smith, the wind winds up. And then,
Okay, so if I poke at it, we'll see how it diverges. Whoa. Well, that's really not stable.
yep, a stable rocket won't budge when given a nudge. By flipping full circle, the ancient fire dragon design is an aerodynamic disaster. So it's on to Carrie's plan B,
New head.
New head.
where thanks to some simple aerodynamic encouragement,
Internal motor.
Like it.
the mythical missile can still get fired up yet.
All right, round 2. This is more aerodynamic, hopefully. Air-breathing fire dragon with fins and modified head. Go ahead, start up the wind.
With the wind at speed, Steve knocks her up.
Yeah, that's really stable.
That's great.
And this time, the rocket immediately bounces back. A clear sign that this dragon is durable.
I think we have a design. So we've had great success in the wind tunnel. We have a stable design. Now, yeah, I know it doesn't look exactly like the drawings, but believe you me, if you saw this flying over the horizon, spitting arrows at you, you would call this an arrow-breathing dragon.
So they have a design in theory. But what about in practice?
So we're here at the New Jerusalem airport to see which design flies best. Now, obviously, the ancient one didn't do so well in the wind tunnel, but the new design did pretty awesome. So it's time to see how they fly in the real world with actual rocket power.
Yep, before the guys focus on the rocket's second stage warhead,
Okay, I'm ready, fire it!
they first want to confirm that the ancient dragon can't fly,
All right, this should be interesting.
while their modified miniature can.
All right, Fire Dragon is set. Let's see if he flies.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Well, I think that would probably kill your own army.
Having a missile land back on the launch pad is not what you'd call ideal. So it's onwards and hopefully upwards with their doctored design.
All right, this is modified Fire Dragon. You ready?
I'm ready, do it.
Here we go in 3, 2, 1, firing.
Oh, yeah! That is beautiful.
Holy moly, that thing was gone.
The difference couldn't be more extreme. As one small-scale rocket does the twist, the other shoots for the moon, just as NASA predicted.
I think we've got a design for full scale.
And while it's true that the second stage warhead has yet to get a look in, it's definitely a case of so far, so good.
Now, when we left NASA, I was feeling pretty good about this rocket design. But you know what? We got 1,500 feet. You know what that means? That means we're ready to go full scale. Let our enemies beware. MythBusters have a fire dragon.
Make it fast, Slippery. This is your last draw.
It's a classic cowboy conundrum. But should you really never bring a knife to a gunfight?
What a great space.
Nice space for a shootout.
Let's have a showdown.
Okay.
First up for this showdown comes some mutual target practice. Adam with his paintball pistol and Jamie with a water balloon?
So I wanted to throw my hunting knife at Adam, but for some reason nobody else thought this was a good idea. So I've come up with a safe knife analog, and it's these water balloons. They're filled up such that they've got the same mass as the knife, and if I throw them at the same speed, they're basically identical, except that they're non-lethal.
Feeling ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Let's do it.
But first comes the obligatory pastiche. Featuring a pair of Western wannabes known as the Less Than Magnificent 2. And after the tumbleweed cutaways, here's the method to their madness.
So here's our experimental setup for replicating the knife versus gun showdown from the Magnificent Seven. Jamie is the knife. I am the gun. We stand 16 feet apart, and our signal to move is when Mike fires the starter pistol.
Now, the minute I hear that bang, I've got to get to Adam with my knife substitute before he gets to me with his pistol. I'm ready.
Let's do it. Are you all right?
You got me in the crotch.
You got me right here.
I got you around
I shot
there.
you in the crotch. I'm sorry about that. And I think I got the shot off before you got the knife in. However, it still means I'm dead.
Yeah, and I'd be very unhappy.
This is a very interesting result. I got my shot off long before the knife got to me, but the knife still got to me. So the fact is that Jamie got his groin shot off, and I have a knife in my chest. In that one, I'd say knife wins. But we're gonna run this a few more times just to make sure.
So cue test 2.
That was it. You hit me, and I got you. Nice.
Good.
We've only had a couple of tries at this, and we're already getting some really interesting data. You can see on the high-speed camera that my knife is halfway to Adam before he's pulled the trigger of his gun, which means that unless he dodges, he's gonna die from the knife.
So for test 3, the plan is exactly that. Can Adam shoot straight, then dodge the knife?
You dodged my knife.
Did I get hit?
I missed you.
Well, in a word, no. While he did duck, doing so meant his aim was lame. And Jamie survives as well.
Let's do it again.
In test 4, Adam is accurate, but this time gets hit himself.
You nicked my shoulder.
But in test 5, it all comes together in slow motion. Mike fires the gun. Jamie launches the knife. Adam shoots Jamie square in the chest before he then ducks from death.
I hit him right in the chest.
And in a whole bunch of subsequent tests,
I shot your leg off.
it's the same old story.
You keep ducking.
Bringing a knife to a gunfight won't let you rule the duel.
I'm like spot on every time, but you keep moving.
After our extensive testing of the Magnificent 7 Knife vs. Gun Showdown, here's how it shakes out. Gun wins, and for a couple of reasons. One, I was always able to squeeze a shot off before the knife got to me. Two, most of the time I had enough time after squeezing off the round to actually dodge the knife. You can't dodge a bullet. I think we've proven that one before.
So is that it for Knife vs. Gun? Does Gun just win?
Not by a long shot. I'm not done with you yet.
Excellent. Let's go.
The ancient fire dragon had a wind tunnel wipeout,
That's really not stable.
but their modified missile was a streamlined sensation.
I think we have a design.
So what's next?
All right, so now it's time to focus on this mythical second stage of the fire dragon.
Yeah, supposedly mid-flight, 10 rocket arrows started shooting out of the dragon's mouth.
Yeah, well, there's 3 things we have to figure out. 1, design. How do we grip the arrows inside of the body to make sure they can still fire out accurately? 2, timing. How do we get all 10 arrows to fire on cue? And 3, size. How big is this thing gonna be?
All right, well, I have an idea for an arrow containment unit and a timed fuse system, but I'm not really sure about the size.
I think they have to be pretty big because we have to accommodate a 3-foot arrow plus fuses and the first stage of the rocket. So I think we're actually talking about a 6-foot fire dragon rockets. We're gonna have to go out to the desert to fire these off.
Sounds good to me.
With the history books no help for the mythical second stage, the guys have to tackle this part from scratch as they redesign and retime their ancient wartime weapon full scale. Or at least Tori does.
I'm gonna be working on the ignition system. Now, this isn't gonna be an easy task. What I need to do is get all 10 rocket-powered arrows to fire out right as the shuttle is coming down upon the approaching army.
Tori's first step for this second stage is to turn the arrows into rocket arrows.
All right.
Then he comes over all a quiver.
What I'm working on right now is the quiver that's gonna hold the rocket-powered arrows. There's gonna be 10 of them, and they're gonna slip inside the fire dragon. We don't want all 10 arrows just bouncing around as it's going on its flight.
Although it looks more Gatling gun than arrow holder,
Instead of bullets, it's shooting arrows.
it's this clever quiver that should give the arrows a degree of accuracy, provided that they even ignite.
Now, for these fire dragons to be successful, the second stage has to work. So my plan right now is I'm taking 5 rockets, and I filled the nozzles with black powder, and then I'm taking this fuse, and I'm going to light it and see if that ignites the black powder in the nozzle to get the rockets that are attached to arrows to fire.
And once relocated to the bunker, it's time to do just that.
God, I hope this works. All right, you ready? This is second stage of Fire Dragon test. Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
It may not look like it, but this test could not have gone better. The fuse system was a blast, igniting all arrows on cue. And the quiver support let those arrows fly straight and true.
So the ignition system for the second stage of the Fire Dragon worked perfectly. And the best part is, the arrows embedded themselves in the plywood behind us. So that means we have some lethal rocket-powered arrows. I think all we have to do now is get the timing from the first stage to the second stage perfect, and it's time to go to the desert.
Tori's right. With the second stage firing on all cylinders, next, the guys need to up the ante.
I love it out here.
Here comes the Mongolian army. Let's hit him with the Fire Dragon.
We've come out to the Mojave Desert to test our Fire Dragon myth. Now, I've taken my small-scale Fire Dragon, which worked great in NASA and flew straight, and brought it to full scale.
Yep, it's now 6 feet of pure rocket power.
All right, launch site's complete.
But before any missile mayhem, there's some timer testing to be done.
Now, one challenge that we're faced with is figuring out when the second stage is gonna happen. So what we're gonna do is fire one of these without a second stage. See how long it goes? Once we know that, then we can cut our fuse so that our second stage happens halfway through the flight.
Correct timing of the second stage is crucial. Too short a fuse, and the arrows will go nowhere fast. Too long a fuse, and they'll be just as inept. The butter zone is the middle. When the missile has reached its apex, the second stage can deliver its payload at full potential. But how long to reach apex?
All right, so this is Fire Dragon test fire to see how long it flies for. Here we go in 3, 2, 1, fire. Fire Dragon is no joke. Boom, hit, stop. Stop the timer.
12 seconds.
That's perfect. So the first stage of the Fire Dragon flew for 12 seconds and it flew straight. Now it's time to work on the second stage. Now we want that to happen in the middle of its flight. So 6 seconds after it launches, the fire arrows need to start shooting out of its mouth. So I need to cut a fuse. So that happens at exactly 6 seconds. This is gonna be awesome. Fire.
Yep, now they know the fuse time, the guys can at last put the second stage to a proof of concept test. So with a new Dragon, a 10 rocket arrow warhead, and a 6-second fuse,
Fire Dragon.
It's all set for the stage 2 showdown.
All right, now listen, I need you to fly into the air, and at 6 seconds, I need you to start shooting your fire arrows out of your mouth. All right, you got that? Don't make me look stupid.
All right, so this is 10 live rocket arrows inside of the Fire Dragon.
In 3, 2, 1. Yeah!
Houston, we have a problem.
Everything blew out.
Wow.
It blew out.
Now that was an unsuccessful launch. Now looking at the high speed, it looks like the engine actually broke free of the mount and it actually blasted up through the tube of the Fire Dragon, never igniting the fire arrows. So we're gonna reset and see if we can get the second stage to work. All right, round 2. Let's hope it works this time.
Okay, this is rocket test fully loaded with arrows. In 3, 2, 1. Fins blew off. I don't know about that distance, but it looked like the rig worked.
Yeah. No, the fuses work perfectly, man.
It wasn't a textbook test, but it was mission accomplished. Moments after launch, the stabilizing fins fell off, sending the rocket spinning. But in spite of this, the second stage ignited on cue, and the rocket arrows fired. And that's enough to take this myth into battle.
Even with this crazy wind and the fins breaking off, we still had success. The second stage worked.
Hey, you know, everything is basically working. We just need to make a few tweaks. I say we go back to the shop, figure that out, and make a whole bunch more.
And then we can come back here and go to war.
Yeah!
Salute your opponent. Engage.
In Duel Dilemma, Adam and Jamie are about to see who lives by the sword and who dies by it.
He'll be all right. It's only a flesh wound.
Next is the world of kendo or samurai. He who moves first loses.
So reaction is faster than action.
Right. Perhaps adrenaline helps your brain react to something faster than you could actually initiate it in the first place.
Well, it looks like we need to get some kendo training.
Let's do it.
Now, it should be noted here, neither Jamie nor I are experienced swordsmen, so we've brought in an expert. Mr. David Nakanishi is a 4th Dan Kendo practitioner, and he is going to instruct us in the basics enough to properly conduct this test without, hurting each other.
But it's not just training that should prevent potential injury.
This is our kendo armor. We have a shirt, a divided skirt, gloves, torso protection, waist protection, last but not least, the helmet. This is what I'm going to be wearing, and Adam will be doing the same.
And once kitted up, the kendo class begins. Full steam ahead.
You want to swing all the way over your head and come down, all right? Ow.
And after 3 hours of being hit,
Wow, that hurt.
again, and again,
This isn't very pleasant.
the guys have apparently mastered the basics.
Okay, so now we've learned different striking techniques, and because, well, we like bashing each other on the head best, we're going to test that technique and see whether, in fact, he who attacks first strikes last.
But before the reaction versus action battle commences, Adam's got a rig to rig.
So when Jamie and I go head to head, we need an automated system that does 2 things. First, it's got to randomly allocate who makes the first move, which is what this circuit box controls.
Nice.
And second, it's got to determine who wins. For that, I've coated our helmets and our swords with a conductive mesh so that when you get hit, your helmet lights up.
If this works, then my sword should light up Jamie's helmet. It does! And Jamie's sword should light up my helmet. It does! We are totally ready.
Well, in that case, it's back to the dojo, which has had a makeover for both aesthetics and science.
Our setup here is pretty straightforward. Who attacks first will be determined by a little signal light. There's one over Jamie's shoulder that only I can see, and the same over my shoulder for him. If I see my signal light go on, I take a deep breath, and sometime between 5 and 10 seconds later, I attack. If I hit Jamie correctly, his lights go on. If he hits me correctly, so do mine. The high-speed camera tells us who got there first.
We should make due note here that this isn't about wailing away at each other until somebody gives. This is one strike at a time, and we're recording the results.
All right, Mr. Heineman, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Begin test 1.
On cue, the randomizer selects that it's Adam who has to move first. But who won?
So check this first shot out. Classic Jamie, you give him a contest and he only pays attention to the ultimate parameter of the contest, which is I've got to light up the lights on Adam's head. You can see I'm actually going for a full hit and Jamie's just reaching out and poking with his stick.
And what that means is test 1's tie is invalid. For test 2,
ready?
Where the randomizer again selects Adam, it's go big or go home.
Ow! Like getting hit with a 2x4.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
This time, with 2 sizable swings, Adam's the clear winner, which is not good news for the myth. For test 3, Jamie selected to lead. And like test 2, he who moved first actually won.
Oh.
But the guys aren't giving up on this myth without a fight, as they break through the pain barrier in 20 separate bouts.
Jamie and I spent all day in that armor smacking each other in the heads with those shinai. And you should note a couple of things as we're going. One, you can see clearly that we get faster as we go, which means that it doesn't hurt less, it actually hurts more as we progress. And secondly, the shinai that we're using, they're wrapped in screen. They're about half a pound heavier each, which means we're taking more force on our head than the armor's been designed for, and both of us could feel it the next day.
Oh, sorry, Jamie.
Yeah, I didn't know when I signed up for this job that it required impacts to the head. I've got a headache.
So do I. Let's go crunch our data and nurse our wounds.
Back at the shop, with medication taken,
First mover, first hit. That was you.
the guys review all 20 high speeds.
That was a tie.
And a pattern emerges fast.
Well, Jamie and I have reviewed many, many high-speed shots of us whacking each other in the head, and it would seem that our injuries are not for naught because the results are pretty consistent. We could not find a single case where the second person to move achieved the first hit. And keep in mind, this is not about skill at kendo. We broke this down to simple reaction time, and the first mover always won in our testing. That's pretty definitive.
So definitive that this myth is busted. In the middle of the Mojave Desert, the MythBusters missile has delivered its payload.
So the proof of concept worked. All 10 rocket arrows came out of the missile mid-launch. Now what?
We ramp it up. We build 10 fire dragons, take them back out to the desert, and have a real-world ballistics battle.
All right, but before we have an all-out launch, let's fire one rocket arrow from the ground and see how far it flies.
Yeah, that's a great idea because a rocket arrow would have been the most advanced technology of its time. So in order to move on to the next weapon, you would have to beat the old technology.
Sounds great.
Sounds like we have a lot of building to do.
Yet, with a dozen dragons to deliver, the guys divide and conquer. As Grant preps the arrows,
Raining death from above.
Tori the fuses,
Oh, this is gonna be so awesome.
and Carrie the dragon heads.
Now, back in the day of the fire dragon, they probably had lots of artisans to make these heads. We just got me. So I'm gonna vacuum form these because we need 10.
And once all the parts are assembled, the production line can begin.
All right, so to execute this experiment, we've got a veritable fire dragon factory happening here. We've got to get all of our fire dragon bodies built. We've got to glue 100 rockets to 100 arrows. We've got to get those put into our rocket holding tubes and get those tubes glued into the fire dragon bodies. And then at the very end, we've got to decorate everything. We've got a big job ahead of us.
It sure is a big job, but a job that's made easier by using modern materials.
So with vacuum-formed dragon heads and hobby rocket motors, we are obviously not using 14th century technology. However, with these modern materials, we are only altering two things. One, how quickly we can assemble these dragons, and with these modern day rockets, they're a lot safer. But for everything else, like thrust, weight, center of gravity, there's no difference with our 21st century components.
In other words, their fire dragons are realistic. What's more, they're also complete.
Dude, I think we're done. These look great.
Let's go to the desert.
All right, let's go launch the fire dragons.
Back in the middle of nowhere, the guys start by building a firing range.
Okay, that is 100 yards.
Because first up are the distance tests.
Did you pack enough water?
Comparing a regular rocket arrow with a fire dragon warhead.
This is weird. It's like we're the last couple on Earth.
And with the range maxed out,
750 yards.
the guys retreat to the launch pad.
All right, so this is a single rocket arrow.
All right, let's see how far this goes by itself.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, those things.
Skywriting a little bit, and now it's falling to the earth.
Yes, what goes up must come down, 650 yards away. And that means it's time to unleash the beast.
So what we're looking for here is to have the first stage of this two-stage rocket fire off straight and stable. And then here, about midway through its flight, it deploys its second stage in the form of 10 fire arrows. The rocket arrows have to land at least here, 750 yards away from the start, thus extending the range of the arrows for this to be a viable weapon in battle.
Grant's right. If its arrows don't better the control, then this missile will bomb.
All right, the rocket is loaded.
In 3, 2, 1.
Just as hoped, the launch works perfectly. And then mid-flight, poof, the arrows are released. But the key question here is, how far did they go?
For this test, we have some good news and bad news. The bad news is we haven't been able to find all 10 arrows, which suggests that accuracy is going to be an issue. Now, the good news is that minimum distance they went was 800 yards. That's well beyond the rocket arrow alone, and that means the battle can commence.
In Dual Dilemma, it's MythBusters 2, Fight Fable 0.
I hit it right in the chest.
Or is it?
Something's been bugging me about the don't bring a knife to a gunfight test we've done.
What's that?
Well, we tested it in a quick draw scenario where both parties know exactly what's about to happen. Suppose it wasn't a quick draw scenario.
If I was running for you, I could cover a heck of a lot of ground by the time you got that gun out and fired.
Exactly what I'm thinking.
So you're the shooter again, and I'm just running straight at you?
Actually, you're going to start by running away from me.
How do you figure?
You'll find out.
Okay.
So it's Knife versus Gun Part 2. And back at Bout HQ, Adam's readying to run rings around Jamie.
The myth is that it is foolish to bring a knife to a gunfight. But if you were standing in front of me with a knife in your hand and I've got a gun in my holster, I think I'm in danger. What we want to know is, what is the minimum distance at which a knife is in fact dangerous to a person with a gun? This circle is how we're going to figure that out. Jamie and I will stand back to back on this dot. When he feels the muse, Jamie will start to run towards the outside of the circle. The moment I feel him move, I pull out my gun, cock it, pull the safety off, and fire around. The moment Jamie hears me fire around, he stops running. The distance at which he's standing when he stops running should be the minimum distance at which a knife is dangerous to a gun.
You ready to do this?
Absolutely. All right, here we go.
Now, how are you going to tell when I'm moving?
We go back to back like this. We have to touch, unfortunately.
Okay.
With the boys in there, just good friends, starting positions, the waiting game begins. Until...
I was a little slow on that one.
Not only was Adam slow, but Jamie was fast, passing beyond the 24-foot perimeter before Adam got his shot off.
What's surprising to me about this is that Adam only has to move the mass of his arms a couple of feet to do his job. Now, granted, he's got to do a couple of delicate movements in that process to complete it, but I, on the other hand, have to get my entire body mass moving really quickly, and I'm covering almost 30 feet in the best case scenario, which I just never would have expected that I could do.
Working under the assumption that Adam will get faster, but Jamie won't, the guys run the gauntlet 4 more times. And the average result is that Jamie makes it to an impressive 24 feet. So what does that mean for the myth?
Now, I am totally blown away by what this test suggests, which is that bringing a knife to a gunfight might actually be the smart move if the distance separating the knife wielder from the gunslinger is 24 feet or less, which is a heck of a lot more distance than I ever thought it would be. Now, of course, we don't know this for sure until we reverse engineer it and have Jamie run at me from that distance. We'll see who gets the first kill.
And to do just that, Adam adds a foam knife to his samurai switch box, so it'll make for some safe stabbing.
Here's how this goes. I wear the hat. I wear the shirt. Jamie runs at me with a knife. If he successfully stabs me, I die. The lights tell you that I'm dead.
With both duelers dressed for success,
I feel conductive.
It's go time.
Now this time, I'm not shooting at any cardboard cowboy. I'm staring right at the face of death because Heinemann is running straight towards me.
But just like the time before, I'm going to be starting at will, running like crazy for Adam, and trying to stab him before he shoots me.
Perhaps now is a good time to say, don't try what you're about to see at home.
You ready? I'm ready when you are. Are you okay?
It had to happen sooner or later.
It's a spectacular result, if a little unexpected. Less true grit, more blazing saddles. And unfortunately for Jamie, the high speed caught every last frame. Once upon a time in the West, cowboys were coached to never bring a knife to a gunfight. And after test 1, that seems like good advice.
I'm ready when you are.
But with Jamie reset at the 24-foot mark, it's kill or be killed, take 2.
I nailed you right in the chest, but man, that is terrifying. Totally terrifying.
Yep, a sprinting, screaming Heineman is what nightmares are made of. But at this distance, it was Adam who won the duel. Just barely. So Jamie shifts the start line to 20 feet.
All right, my safety's on. Gun is loaded. Dude, I've never heard you make that noise, ever. In these face-to-face tests, I've been able to shoot Jamie at both 24 and 20 feet, although 20 feet was quite close. But the fact that I'm able to make that distance shorter than I was for the other test makes sense to me, because watching him run at me while screaming is a fantastic adrenaline rush. It is absolutely an incredible motivation to get things in order to shoot him before I die.
But will it be motivation enough for a 16-foot showdown?
By the way, I would take careful note of Jamie's shenanigans just before he runs, because I can tell psychologically he's actually trying to make me laugh and then exploit the lull in my attention just post laughing. Oh, no, no, no. It's on. Let's do it. Ah! I'm dead. I touched you with the gun, but I wasn't able to fire, and you had the knife deep in my chest.
You're dead.
I'm dead. I'm dead.
Yep, at last, the Heineman's the hero. From 16 feet, Adam could draw and cock, but not fire. A pattern repeated on subsequent tests.
I'm dead. I'm dead. It's official. I'm totally dead.
So what does that mean for the myth?
When you hear the phrase, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, it implies that if you're the one holding the gun, you should feel completely relaxed in your superior firepower against your opponent's Stone Age tool. And I think we've totally busted that. Here we have demonstrated that at close quarters, a knife is a very respectable and to be feared opponent. Well, that is pretty definitive. You're able to get to me between 16 and 18 feet.
Yep. Let's call 18 feet a guaranteed death zone by knife.
That is shocking. I would not have called it being that far.
Me neither.
Two-stage missiles have been used in warfare for decades. But could they have a far longer history than that? To find out, cue the Fire Dragon finale.
Now it's time to put our Fire Dragon myth to the ultimate test. We're going to fire 10 rockets into the air, and we're going to see how it does in a battle situation. We have our Chinese army and a castle. We're going to put them out at 800 yards.
If attacking a distant enemy wasn't hard enough,
Good luck, man.
Here we go.
the wind is blowing a gale,
Come on, bring it on!
making this test the ultimate trial by fire dragon.
All right, men, we are going into battle. Ready? Charge!
Come on, charge! Come on, you guys, charge! What are you waiting for?
With the targets ready to stand and deliver, at Mission Control,
Unveil the arsenal.
it's time to ready the rockets.
So we've got 10 fire dragons, each with 10 rocket arrows inside. And we're gonna call this whole myth based on two things.
Death from the skies.
First, will all second stages fire off? In other words, will the weapon be reliable?
Lead the charge. The Golden Dragon!
And second, will it take out a significant number of soldiers? In other words, does it have any degree of accuracy?
He's so awesome.
Now for this myth to be confirmed, both those answers need to be yes.
You guys ready to find out if this ancient weapon was a viable one?
I just hope they don't know Kato on the launch pad.
All right, time for war.
With the opposing army half a league away and the hot winds sweeping through this valley of death, it's time for our charges to launch this light brigade.
All right, this is Fire Dragon. The final launch.
The full onslaught. All right, here we go. This is for real. In 3, 2, 1, fire!
Wow is right as all 10 take off. And then,
Oh, it's raining down!
Wow.
Just landing now, and they're landing everywhere.
All right, let's go check it out.
from the bunker, the guys know that 7 out of 10 second stages fired, meaning 70 arrows deployed. But did any hit the target? Well, no.
So we found maybe 40 arrows, but here's the thing. Less than 10 are in the target zone. Some fell early at around the 400-yard mark, but others sailed way beyond the castle to like 1,100 yards. Clearly, the wind didn't help, but as far as accuracy goes, this was a fail.
Ain't that the truth? With not a single soldier struck down, the fire dragons proved fickle.
All right, so where are we with the fire dragon myth? Did it fulfill all the requirements? Well, yes and no. For one, the first stage fired off straight and stable. 2, the second stage deployed, thus increasing the range of the arrows. The problem is that it's not reliable. We had 10 fire dragons out there. Not all of them deployed all of their arrows. If that were the case, you'd see 100 arrows in this region, but we only see 5 or 10. So yes, it's plausible that it might have existed, but is it a practical weapon? No. All right, what do you guys think?
We got them in the vicinity.
Yeah, but they're not accurate or completely reliable. I mean, you might instill fear in your enemy, but it's not practical.
All right, so not really effective or efficient and overly complicated, but definitely plausible.
All right, plausible it is.
That was awesome.
So awesome, let's see that plausible launch one more time.